not Tunisia or Egypt. We, the Libyan people, are completely different. That is not to belittle other peoples, but we have our own means. Yes, there are many demands. The position is clear with the executive establishment in Libya. Saif al-Islam has a reformist approach. The leader has been urgent for dealing with many matters which you are all aware of.
Hafid Al-Gwel is an analyst for Libya and the Middle East. He joins me now live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Gwel, let's start by talking wealth and its role in this. As we've been reporting, 2/3 of the population, some 4 million people, live on less than $2 a day. Would you say that this is the real driving force behind the unrest?
It's a trigger like you've seen in Tunisia and Egypt and elsewhere. And the trigger in Libya is much more potent because these people are living on a pool of oil. Libya is one of the wealthiest countries on earth. It is the wealthiest in Africa. It is one of the major players in OPEC. It produces about 1.7 million barrels of oil a day. It can do more. And therefore, people are extraordinarily frustrated because they see all this wealth of the country around them, but they are not getting any of it. And nobody, in fact, knows where that money is. If you calculate what Libya has gained from oil from 1969 to today, you are talking about an enormous, massive amount of wealth. But if you go to Libya, Libyan streets or Libyan buildings or Libyan infrastructure or hospitals or schools or what have you, you cannot see where this money goes. Yet people see that, for example, a small group of individuals, Gaddafi, his sons and his tribesmen, and others affiliated with him, are squandering the money of the country all over the world in nonsensical adventures like throwing parties in the Caribbean or buying houses in London or yachts in Nice and Cannes. So there is an enormous frustration. But all of this is really the undercurrent. What you have here, that the demands of all of these young people across the Arab world is a voice. They want a voice in the running of their own countries. They don't want to feel like they are victims and simple subjects, but they want to feel ownership of their countries. This is their God-given right.
If I can just jump in, let's focus at the moment. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's focus on specifically on Muammar Gaddafi's wealth, because you've mentioned it now. You know, how much do we know about what he's worth?
Well, it's very hard to tell. Gaddafi's wealth is no separate from the wealth of the country. I mean, I don't think he walks around with any bundles of cash in his pocket. But he definitely has access to every single penny the country has. He can determine how much goes where. There are reports and leaks that just came out last week about how much lending and loans, quote unquote, interest-free loans that have never been paid by all kinds of African leaders and governments and all kinds of liberation or quote unquote liberation movements that he's been supporting. There is no accountability, and this is one of the problems. Nobody knows where the money goes.
Well, Mr. Hafid Al-Gwel, a Libya and Middle East analyst, joining us there from Washington, D.C. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
In Bahrain, thousands of people have returned to Pearl Roundabout, the center of anti-government protests, and the scene of 2 separate attacks last week by security forces. But police and soldiers have now left the area. The government says talks with opposition groups are underway, but as James Bayes reports from Manama, many protesters say they won't be taking part.
The Pearl Roundabout, the place that's become a symbol of protest in Bahrain, back in the hands of thousands of people. This had for a time become a closed military zone, the place where soldiers had fired live rounds, rubber bullets and tear gas at protesters. When the army were pulled out, it looked as if the riot police would stand firm. As the protesters gathered again, the authorities blocked the routes with barbed wire. An officer tried to address the crowd, but he was drowned out by the chanting. Suddenly, the police line began to move. They'd received new orders and got into their vehicles, starting to drive away. The crowd took their chance. The last policemen were chased off by protesters, armed only with flowers. There was nothing to stop the rush to the Pearl roundabout, and the crowd began celebrating.
After the massacre that has occurred here, the Pearl roundabout holds a very big symbol to all Bahraini peoples over here. It reminds them, it gives them hope for victory.
The army and police have withdrawn. Thousands of people are back at this roundabout. The government may believe they've made concessions which set the stage for talks, but it's clear many of these people don't want to negotiate.
We reject all negotiations because of the blood, what happened here, scattered everywhere. There are a lot of people dead, and we are asking for moving this country, for this government. They don't love their people. Forever, forever, and forever, we will stay here. We will stay here forever, because it's our country.
The protesters are back at the Pearl, but this country's problems are a long way from being solved. The violence of the last few days has only increased the determination of many here to change this country forever. James Bays, AlJazeera, Bahrain.
Well, as we saw in that report, protests are ongoing at the Pearl roundabout. One opposition leader told crowds they're setting an example for the world.
We are committed to peaceful protest, which succeeded in Tunisia and Egypt. You're presenting a model. Now the whole world is looking at you. It will also be like a new school. In Tunisia, in Tahrir Square, in Pearl Roundabout, a new school of peaceful protest and presenting demands.
Right, police have also clashed again with anti-government protesters in Algeria's capital. Officers broke up a rally after thousands gathered in the centre of Algiers. Police disrupted a similar rally last week, which was organised to call for better living conditions and greater freedom. Government supporters have also been taking to the streets, adding to the tension.
We have a president. We are not against him. We are not against His Excellency, the President of the Republic.
How can she speak against the march? The president doesn't give us anything. He's a stealer. They're all stealers.
Police in Kuwait have fired tear gas at protesters described as stateless long-term residents. They're demanding citizenship, free education, healthcare and jobs, benefits that are available to all Kuwaiti nationals. Protesters sang the Kuwaiti anthem and chanted slogans such as "We are Kuwaitis." In the wake of its revolution, Egypt has opened its Rafah border crossing into the blockaded Gaza Strip, but for how long? Also coming up.
I'm Nick Spicer in Hamburg, where voters are poised to kick off what could be a difficult regional election season for Chancellor Angela Merkel.